Baseball's in kind of full swing right now. Yankees with their first full squad workout. Yesterday, the Mets had their first full squad workout. A lot of stories coming out of the game, and we love to check in with our good buddy who knows all things baseball, and that is Buster Olney. Buster, how you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, Michael. Great to talk with you.
Giancarlo Stanton, tennis elbow in both elbows, saying today that those little tears in the tendons in the elbow and surgery wouldn't fix it unless it gets blown out, which he doesn't expect. It's almost like the Yankees have to expect this, Buster, and I don't think that you could just look at it lightly because, you need somebody behind Judge now that Soto's in Queens, so limiting Stanton to 100 games is going to be a little bit of a blow.
Yeah, I mean, given the injury history, given the fact that he's 35 years old, given the fact that this is where we are at the start of spring training with an injury that, tends to be chronic, 100 games would probably be a dream scenario, and that's obviously just speculation. But what I thought of, Michael, when I saw this news was you were around the Yankees, as they went through the postseason last year. Remember how before every game, Stanton would be out at about 4 or 5 hours before the game, taking batting practice on the fields and going through a regimen early in the afternoon and trying to find his swing and getting comfortable. And it obviously worked for him. And you kind of wonder if this is now a case where, this is a player who really benefits from doing extra work, and that may not be possible given the nature of this injury. I think it's a big concern, early in camp, to have Giancarlo Stanton saying he hasn't taken a swing in about 4 weeks. That's pretty scary.
It is unbelievable. And, I'm going to put this out to our audience in the 2 o'clock hour. Let me put it out to you. I broke down what he's done with the Yankees. So they got him after the 2017 season. He played 158 games in 2018. And after that, he had 139 in 2021, but he's been hurt all the time. He does he rises to the occasion in the playoffs. But I ask you, Buster, is it worth it to have him now that he's not going anywhere because of the contract? But if the Yankees could do a do-over, would they bring him in? Oh, and is the fact that he performs well in the postseason, does it obscure over the fact that he can't stay on the field?
Well, I'll just answer, the first part of that, first and say that would they do the deal knowing what we've seen? No, they wouldn't. And I think that would be the honest answer because he's had so many injuries and this has become part of the deal. Now, it is great, that he has stepped up in big moments. He clearly is not afraid. He hits big home runs, but this is an issue to the point where you kind of wonder if the Yankees will look at guys who are still unsigned and say, we don't know when we're going to have Stanton back. So why not go and look at one of the veterans that's still out in the free agent market and consider other names because we don't know how much time he's going to be on the field with us. The Yankees, as you know, I always feel like that they do a great job in handling injuries in that they keep the focus on later in the year. If, sitting Stanton down at the beginning of the year means they have a better chance to have him September or October, they'll do that. But you're still going to need, as you said, another bat in the lineup to help protect Aaron Judge, who's going to look pretty naked this year without Juan Soto batting in front of him.
All right, let's go over to the Mets, and we find out today Frankie Montas is not going to pitch for a while. He's going to be shut down for a significant stretch. And when I look at the Mets, I love what they did, obviously, bringing in Soto, and their offense looks very, very impressive. But the starting pitching is a huge question mark, and Montas is a guy. When people get hurt all the time, Buster, you know what? They're going to get hurt again. And Montas has not been able to stay on the mound. That's a big blow if he can't pitch.
Yeah, and it was interesting. After they signed him, talking with evaluators of other teams who had a ton of respect for David Stearns' history, putting together teams, Jeremy Hefner, their pitching coach, what they accomplished last year. But there was surprise when they gave Montas that kind of money because their feeling was, man, to your point, he's always hurt. He's always down. There's always a physical problem. He hasn't been able to stay on the field, and that, without a doubt, is the most fragile part of this team. There's a lot about the Mets that you absolutely love. They bolstered their bullpen, having Soto, hitting behind Lindor, bringing back Pete Alonso, Vientos in his development. But I think it's going to come down again this year as it did last year to starting pitching. one of the great things that we saw in baseball last year was how the Mets put together a much better rotation than anybody expected, and they wound up playing in the National League Championship Series. That's going to be the challenge again this year. It's pretty clear because they're pretty thin in the rotation.
You mentioned free agents that are out there. The last big free agent actually signed now with Alex Bregman going to the Boston Red Sox. How does that impact the Red Sox in terms of competing with the Yankees and let's say the Blue Jays and the Rays and the Orioles? It's a pretty good division. How does that impact the Red Sox?
It's huge. It's very interesting talking with folks with other teams about that deal, and they said, for a franchise like the Red Sox, big money, big market team, it was a great signing, this late in the winter. He's going to make them better. I was texting with Ron Washington, the Angels manager, of course, a great infield instructor, and I asked him, I said, look, if he winds up moving from third base to second base, how difficult will that be for him? How will he do? And he talked about, Bregman's history playing in the middle infield when he was in college and his particular skills, and he said he's going to be great. And when you really look at what the Red Sox are putting together, they added a number 1 and number 2 starter, Garrett Crochet, Walker Buehler, early in the offseason. Now you have Bregman. You have this great wave of prospects that are coming up, guys like Christian Campbell who could manifest at some point. Anthony, the right fielder, who's going to be a factor, I think, early in the year. This is, to me, the team that's going to challenge the Yankees for the American League East. That is the best overall team, especially given the fact the Orioles haven't added starting pitching.
All right, so Alex Cora, when they signed Bregman, said, we're not going to eliminate the fact that he could play third. He won a Gold Glove at third base. He said that hasn't been decided. But then Rafael Devers spoke today, and he told the assembled media, there's no way I'm ever DHing and there's no way I'm playing first base. So that pretty much answers the question. It's amazing when players say there's no way they're going to do something, and they're under contract. But I guess Devers, with that big contract, he also feels that he's got leverage and he's not moving.
And in the end, they're going to have to listen to him. He's not going to, they're not going to do it unless he's willing. I would say this. I do wonder how this might develop over the course of spring. I had one evaluator with another team say, you have the best third baseman in the American League, and he's not going to play third base, right? And there's an anticipation that at some point, Alex Cora, who does have a great relationship with Devers, Alex is like a big brother to him. As this spring plays out, if Christian Campbell is ready to take over at second base, and that's the feeling of a lot of folks with other teams, and their best team is with Bregman at third and with Devers at DH and Campbell playing second base, some people who know the relationship between these two wonder if Alex can convince Devers, hey, this is the right thing right now for this team. And let's face it, Devers already been paid. Like, he has nothing at risk. But in the end, they're going to have to listen to him. At the time that the Yankees got Alex Rodriguez, the wide consensus in baseball was he was a better shortstop than Derek Jeter, but guess who moved?
and what's amazing, too? You're saying that, Bregman is arguably the best third baseman in the American League. He just won the Gold Glove. And Devers is terrible at third base. So, it just makes so much sense to DH him. But I guess the DH spot is kind of clogged up, too.
Well, they would have to move Masa Yoshida in a deal and dump his contract. But I think they're the biggest thing is to get their defense in order. Alex Cora is a big pitching and defense type guy. They worked on that this winter. I don't think that it would be a problem. If Devers gave him a green light to move to DH in particular, because let's face it, he probably would struggle as much defensively at first as he has at third base, then they would do that in a heartbeat, and they would figure out the thing with Ishida afterward.
All right, so we're coming up on, and we're talking with Buster Olney here on the Michael K. Show. We're coming up on the Vlad Jr. self-imposed deadline to get a contract done. He's not going to negotiate during spring training nor during the season. Is there a chance that the Blue Jays get this done before the deadline?
I guess there's a chance because Vladdy's made it clear, like, he would like to stay. He was born in Canada. This is where, he grew up in Canada. He's much more open to going there than a lot of major league players, but they seem to be miles and miles and miles apart in the conversations they've had in the past. As you know, it's been more than a decade since, and we talked about this a lot during the Pete Alonso negotiations, been more than a decade since a first baseman got more than $200 million. I don't know exactly what the Blue Jays have offered him, but I think its points during this have been more than $100 million apart. There's talk in baseball that Vladdy would like a deal somewhere in the range of $450 million. You're the Blue Jays right now. You have a terrible farm system. You have an older team. You need Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to be what you had hoped that Ohtani would be when you pursued him, and Soto would be the anchor of the franchise. They might have to, hold their noses and give him a number that they're not comfortable with, or they're going to see him walk out the door, and he's going to be the most coveted player at this year's trade market. You and I have talked in the past about how internally this is a player that the Mets are really interested in down the road. Imagine having a young Soto and a young Vladdy, who's only going to be 27 when he hits free agency, batting back-to-back in your lineup for years to come.
Do you think that the eventual Guerrero contract is going to move him into the Soto neighborhood, or is there going to be another player that goes there?
Yeah, he's not going to get close to where Soto is. I mean, Soto's by himself, as you know, by $300 million. The actual present-day value on Ohtani's contract is $461. Soto got $765 in addition to all the perks. By the way, the Mets are spending more money on seats for Soto's family this year than they are for their manager, Carlos Mendoza. Okay, that tells you what kind of a perk package he's got. But I think the player who could move into the Soto neighborhood, the next guy who's got a shot, is Gunnar Henderson of the Orioles. He's going to be a free agent at age 27, phenomenal athlete. He can run, he can hit for power. And the biggest thing is to hit free agency at an age earlier than 29 or 30. That's how Soto got to where he is. That's where Yamamoto got such a big deal from the Dodgers, $325 million. Gunnar Henderson's going to be a free agent in 2029, and it'll be after the labor negotiation is settled. So that'll give him a chance, I think, maybe to get that huge $700 million plus deal.
All right, everybody at ESPN's putting together a list of the best at the positions, and the first one today is the top 10 catchers, and you have Contreras, William Contreras, number 1, and Yankee fans would like to know, you have Austin Wells, number 8. So why Contreras, number 1, and how did Wells get to number 8 so quickly in just the second year?
Yeah, I think Contreras, because he was so strong offensively last year, and there was something that he was a good hitter with the Atlanta Braves. They traded in the Brewers, partly out of concern about whether or not he was developed as a catcher. But he really has made great progress in that end, so he's a serviceable defensive player in addition to the great offense. I think there's a lot of surprise with people that Adley Rutschman, had such a terrible second half last year. What I heard from evaluators, they thought he put on weight, that he wasn't moving as well. He batted 189 in the second half, chasing a lot of pitches up and out of the zone. And, the feeling is that, he'll bounce back. He'll probably be back to being the number 1 catcher. Austin Wells is someone who I heard a lot of positive stuff from folks with other teams. As you know, to have a young catcher who's so high, I think he finished 3rd last year in framing metrics among all catchers in baseball, to have someone with that kind of ability defensively early in his career, as well as having the offensive prowess, because there was talk when he started out as a professional that they might move him from catcher to another spot. It bodes well. When we talk about who might bat behind Judge in the lineup, we saw the Yankees do that late last year. Maybe that's the guy they settle on this year with Stanton being out.
So the other day, I just wanted to get your take on this before we let you go. MLB Network came out and said that Ohtani is the best player in baseball and Judge is number 2. Now, if Ohtani pitches, I would agree with that. But if he doesn't pitch, and he hasn't pitched in 18 months, I think Judge is better, especially if you look at all the statistics that count. What's your take?
I agree with you. And look, Judge, as great as Ohtani was last year, the best player in baseball last year was Aaron Judge, with everything that he brought to the table. And I think I've told you these numbers before. I texted them to you. When you think about what he did last year, an adjusted OPS plus of 223, that's higher than in any individual season for Lou Gehrig or Mickey Mantle or any other Yankee great other than Babe Ruth. That's how great Aaron Judge was last year. I understand, he was not good in the postseason. He dropped the fly ball when the Dodgers all made fun of him. But the bottom line was that last year Aaron Judge was the best player in baseball.
We're on the same wavelength. I like that, Buster. I thank you for coming on as always.
All right, Michael. Thanks for having me.
All right, that's Buster Olney. Get a little taste of what's going on in spring training and some of the stories out there. Also comes out that the Angels are moving Mike Trout from center to right field to try to take some stress off of his body and keep him healthy, which he has been unable to do.